I was listening to you the other day, but before I even go into that, do you want to, if anybody finds you through this portal, do you want to describe your channel or give a brief description of
Yeah.
what you're about?
So basically, my channel was created because of a lack of focus on the things that I believe matter. Uh, Nobody was talking about election integrity enough, and they damn sure weren't talking about solutions. We try to talk about that often. Foreign policy, sorely lacking. For me personally, there weren't enough Black people in the progressive discussion influencing. I just felt like from a distance, like I'm going to Politicon this weekend, it's still the same thing. I feel like a lot of issues when it comes to Black people, maybe even foreign policy, or just marginalized people, they're not really represented by progressive independent media. And I felt like that needed to change. And so we can actually start speaking to the real foundational systemic issues and start talking about solutions rather than just having people grandstand for clicks and for likes. And we break out of that partisan, duopolist thought process that everybody, like, the people on the left were like, oh man, Trump's the worst thing that ever happened to this country. And then, the people on the right, Trump's the best thing that's ever happened to this country. I'm like, can we just, measure based off of what we have available at the time? When there's something to celebrate, let's celebrate it. When it's time to critique, let's critique. But let's all do it with the goal of moving forward with a solution-based thought process.
Right on. What I dug about you was, you definitely delve into the theatrical aspect of what we call U.S. electoral politics. But then you were, I was listening to your video with Beto O'Rourke wanting to confiscate the guns. I think that was what it was. And then you started going into Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
And then you started going to the Federal Reserve. And then you even touched on the Rothschild family a bit. So once you start going down that rabbit hole, you're going into like a whole other territory. You've got the controlled electoral process. You have the reality TV star who's the president right now. You have the voting booths outsourced to Diebold. I mean, there's a lot of Citizens United. There's a lot of shady ass shit going down. So when you get into that zone, then you're starting to get into what this is really about.
Well, and that's exactly the fact that we consider that a different zone, which is rightfully so at the moment, is the whole problem with our politics right now, because there hasn't really been someone who's been involved enough. Like I would consider myself a quote unquote political insider. I've advised in one form or another 3 presidential campaigns this election. And I still advise in one form or another 2. One of them dropped out. And not to mention the plethora of congressional and Senate candidates and local candidates and things like that, various reasons. So there hasn't really been anybody who can have that bird's eye view of history, our real history, but be able to connect that to how it's influencing the way we see things and how we participate and engage today. On our channel, we're doing a marathon for what's known as NSC 68. I'm sure you're familiar with that. But basically,
please say that term again.
NSC 68.
Please define.
So it was basically a doctrine, if you will, of how we were going to engage in foreign policy, propaganda, most specifically dealing with Russia in the intelligence community right after World War II. It was started under Truman. But it's and it's so extensive that we have to break it down into multiple segments, and we have a Google. But if you look at something like that, it perfectly codifies what we're seeing today. It's right, it's in the playbook. I mean, the whole Russia, basically when we're in the middle of a battle, if you will, an imperialist battle, because basically what it's always been between Russia and America. We both kind of saw an opportunity after World War II to take over the world, basically. But here's something, once again, something that we learned while researching. It turned out the ambition of Russia was greatly exaggerated.
Well, they lost 20 million people in World War II.
Say that again. You fell out a little bit.
I'm sorry. They lost 20 million or so people in World War II.
Yes, they won World War II.
They won World War II, but just imagine a loss to the population. I mean, it was horrible for the Poles, the Czechs, the Romanians to be under Soviet rule. But I also understand from a realpolitik strategic point of view of creating a buffer zone after, you know, Operation Barbarossa with the Germans coming in and just like annihilating your country, you're going to be a little paranoid.
Giving them the Eastern Bloc at that point was only fair. And we pretended, you know, I think it was the Dulles brothers basically convinced Truman that it was a lie, that the Yalta Conference never happened. And that's how we end up in the Cold War. And then that's part of the reason NSC-68 was created. And the way we engage with Russia today still is based off of NSC-68. Oh, but it's scarier than that. Like I said, we have a whole Google Doc, and I strongly encourage you to go to the channel and check it out. But I mean, we even talk about how, like you know, we talked about in that video, how with Beto O'Rourke, I mean, basically, we have not fought in a justified war in at least the last 100 years, and that includes World War II.
Did you?
Because
yeah, all right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's what I was going to ask. Are you including World War II? Because most people always say that's the good war. So that's. I understand your take, but some people might not, you know, get it because they're thinking of Hitler and the whole Axis and fascism thing. So I understand because you know, like you, I know the background of what happened in Weimar Germany, the reparations, the Treaty of Versailles, but a lot of people don't understand that how Hitler was created actually by those conditions.
Yes, and I would even take it a step further. We have to really look at World War I, and it's funny because I can tell you for a long time I completely ignored World War I or the cause of World War I, not because I you know, didn't think it was important, but because I'm like, if I have a feeling that if I look into how World War I started, I am not going to like the answer, and it's going to be more than I want to deal with at the time, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I distinctively remember in school, whenever we're learning about how World War I came to be, and I remember, and everybody knows this. Oh well, how did it start? Just remember for the test, it was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And you're like, teacher, who the hell is Archduke Franz Ferdinand? Was he like the heir to the German throne or something? Well, no. Was he the heir to the Russian throne? Well, no. Who the hell is he? He was just an Archduke of Austria. Yeah, okay, right. I don't understand. Like, I don't. But once you realize that, and he was like relatively unimportant, like in the grand scheme. But once you realize that, you kind of know, like, oh God, there's something bigger going on. And then you start finding out how Cecil Rhodes, many of you know him as that's who the Rhodes Scholarship was named after. That's the guy who, quote unquote, created South Africa.
Fucking Rhodesia. Rhodesia was named after.
Rhodesia, exactly. So Cecil Rhodes had this grand scheme of Anglo superiority and dominance. In fact, South Africa was his first test.
Yeah, he was actually a gay dude, and
I did not know that.
Yeah. So he had a lot of. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. To quote, you know, the Seinfeld, totally cool. I'm just pointing that out because maybe in that environment, living at his time, you know, you had to be very closeted. That might have also created some psychological things with him. Just living that duality and stuff.
Well, you got to think about it. Mostly that's kind of how all crazy great men are. There's always that repression and not dealing with something, which is why Medicare for all is so important, everybody. So we don't have another Hitler or Cecil Rhodes. Right. So he created this circle, you know, this circle of powerful men, powerful Anglo men specifically. And people would think, oh man, it's like conspiratorial. Nah, bro, this was written about 1902 in New York Times very openly. They don't care. This was like, nah, people were sounding the alarm on this early. Like, shouldn't we do something about this?
Yeah.
But Cecil Rhodes did pass away before World War II or World War I got ignited. However, he had already set everything in motion. And then, like I talked about in that Beto video, to speed up the story, Rothschild got together with J.P. Morgan, and they bankrolled the Bull Moose Party to put in Woodrow Wilson, who was a dumbass. If you notice, our history loves putting dumbasses in power because they're easy to control.
And a virulent racist. Woodrow Wilson, he actually screened Birth of a Nation in the White House and resegregated federal workers. The guy was a virulent racist.
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at our foreign policy, seems about right. It's old racist white guys have basically been running our foreign policy throughout history, which would explain why we wouldn't even use chemical weapons on the Nazis, but they use them on us. But we use chemical weapons on Vietnamese and people in Cambodia and Laos. So like, because the people in charge saw them as lesser, like they saw them as subhuman. So they bankrolled the Bull Moose Party with Teddy Roosevelt to split the Republican vote, and it was successful. And Woodrow Wilson comes in. Woodrow Wilson ran, ironically enough, on being anti-war. He was not. It was just to get him into that second term. And then, of course, we found, that's when we started blaming Germany for literally everything, because Germany was Great Britain's biggest economic competition. And so was Russia, actually. And then Germany and Russia started working together, and they were like, nah, but we can't do this without the United States involved. So they put the little, the little strings, puppet strings on Woodrow Wilson and said, hey, everything that happens, we're going to blame Germany for it.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And so when you get to that point and you start to realize what it was all about, because what happened after World War I ended? We put the sanctions on them. We killed their military. We did everything that we possibly could to make sure that Germany could not be competition anymore, which begs the question that nobody ever really thinks about, which is how did Hitler get a huge army, a massive with a massive arsenal, with
Prescott
Bush,
Bush's daddy invested in Hitler.
Exactly. Not only Bush's dad, GM,
I'm talking about George H. Bush's daddy.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Prescott Bush was on whenever the war counts. There was like 20,000 millionaires and billionaires created after World War I. And so when that happened, people decided they wanted a wartime economy. There was a whole war advisory board, and that included members from both the United States and from the UK. And that's how Hitler got the money to do. Like, you can't just take over a broke country and there's money now. No, like we literally gave Hitler the power to do what he did. We played both sides. Funny enough, we took a trick right out of the Rothschilds' book, because that's what they did. They used to fund all sides of the war in Europe. That's why I think about it. Like, Hitler just wakes up one day and is like, yo, we hate Jewish people. And everybody's like, yeah, we hate Jewish people too. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how humanity works. That's not how human beings work. There had to be some clear scapegoat. There had to be a missing piece to that puzzle that is never brought up, because otherwise you can't just say anti-Semitism and leave it at that, because that doesn't really answer the question. Why was that the key to Hitler being able to galvanize everybody? Because the part of the story that doesn't get talked about is that Europe at that time was very, especially Germany and Russia, they were very cognizant of the fact that Rothschild bankrolled World War I. They were not stupid. They knew that. And, the whole problem with the daddy issues that Hitler may have had, because it's speculated that Rothschild was in fact his father, because Rothschild was from Austria.
Because his mother was, I believe, a maid for the Rothschilds, or had some kind of employee capacity. That
is confirmed. His mother was a maid for the Rothschild family. They do not know who Hitler's father actually is.
Schicklgruber.
Yes, nobody believes that shit. But that's what people think, that Hitler had severe daddy issues. So you combine that with the fact that everybody knew. Like, if you were in Europe, you knew for a fucking fact that Rothschild was the reason World War I happened, or at least he was extremely involved in it. And the Rothschilds already had a bad record. The Rothschilds were so good at kind of deflecting blame to at least in the eyes of the rest of the Western world, that they even, because in the lead up to World War I, that's when they started controlling the media. That's when that started. And so in the lead up to World War I, he convinced everybody that even now, if you ask an average Israeli person, you mention Rothschild's name, you're anti-Semitic. Not to mention, anti-Semitic only started meaning anti-Jewish, if you will, only recently, within the last 100 years. So anti-Semitic actually means like anti-Semite, which in a Semite is anybody from that Middle Eastern, Western Africa.
Sure. Let me interject here, because I have some authority to speak on this. My own ethnic heritage is Jewish. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand Jewish people, or some percentage, don't realize the damage the Rothschilds caused them, and that were responsible for a lot of innocent Jews. Because you're right, it was like there was a connection between the Rothschilds and Jewish people. But are they going to do anything to the Rothschilds? No, the Rothschilds are going at it. You know, they're getting out of Dodge when the shit gets hot. They go after the guy who owns the deli. You know, the Jewish guy in the corner. That's all they could get their hands on. And so
it's that weaponization of desperation.
Yeah.
The scapegoat.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And that's what we see. And so like understanding all this and how the media, like just like the deep dive that I've done in the history and the real cause of a lot of the issues in the attempt to make, you know, to make the connection that a lot of people haven't made, mostly I think out of fear, to be honest with you. It actually has kind of opened my eyes a lot to be able to deal with and kind of correct people's thought processes when we're trying to solve today's real life problems. I talk to people all the time. They say, oh, we want the next FDR. I say, you're full of shit. We need the next Henry Wallace, because Henry Wallace wasn't getting played by those corporations to fool him into going to that war. Or Henry Wallace would have never allowed our corporations to fund Hitler. It would have never happened. Not FDR, excuse me. Henry Wallace would have never allowed our corporation to fund Hitler. And at the very bare minimum, he would have held them accountable for what they did. And neither of those things happened.
FDR was more realpolitik. I mean, he like, if you look at it, Stalin killed as many people as Hitler, if you count body count, the Holodomor and, you know, all the gulags. But, you know, when the time came, he was Uncle Joe during World War II. He was like our pal. And then, of course, after that, we went to the Cold War military-industrial complex. Then Russia became demonized, and also a way to destroy labor. You know, these guys who want more labor rights are commies. So, you know, that
Stalin kind of screwed us, man. Because, like, if he would have just acted right, low key, we wouldn't have. They use the caricature of Stalin to suppress so many labor movements and racial equality movements. Like, it got to the point where they were just throwing like, oh man, you see those Black Panthers? Well, they probably like Stalin too. You're like, what? Well, I mean, Stalin's a bad guy. So, like, the guilt by association thing really started with, you know, at least efficaciously with Stalin, because he gave them so much ammo that it didn't matter. Like, they could just say what the hell they wanted to and put Stalin's name attached to it, and it screwed up a lot here. Even though the definition of current communism or Marxism or whatever you want to call it kind of started, or the demonization of that, and it got in the definition of it got manipulated because of Stalin. So everybody now associates quote unquote communism or socialism with Stalin rather than with Marx, who was very, very clear on what he meant, but, you know, everybody just throws out the word however they want to nowadays. So
yeah, no, it's I don't, you know, I'm debating whether we should go towards the theatrics of the, you know, the presidential election, because it is very entertaining, or we should stay on this history shit, you know, stuff.
Well, we can link it to the theatrics. We can talk about how many times in history the Democrats specifically screwed over their candidates right on the precipice of a true revolution or a true change.
Bobby Kennedy. I mean, look at that one right there. That guy was going to, just like, you know, I think Bobby was maybe, I mean, there was a lot of similarities between the assassination of JFK and his brother Bobby. I think there was a lot of the same
Bob knew exactly
entities.
why his brother got killed.
Yeah.
For sure. You can tell.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, obviously 2016 with Bernie. Right now, what we're seeing with Tulsi. George McGovern, Jimmy Carter ran interference on his campaign. Yeah. Despite everybody having this, you know, this wonderful image of Jimmy Carter. What was the Chicago convention?
68? You mean the one in 68 where they were beating up the hippies and stuff and the
Vietnam
protesters?
So you're I think it's Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka were very clear, and I agree with them. You know, the Democratic Party is, by definition, a counter-revolutionary party. And, you know, the Republican Party doesn't have a difficult job. Hey, we want to maintain the status quo, which benefits most of you motherfuckers. Well, I don't like a lot of what they say, but hey, the status quo has been helping me out a lot. So I want to kind of keep it that way. The Democratic Party, of course, has a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of desperate people who, when you're at your, you know, you're at your most desperate, you're more easily manipulated. And that's really what we have to kind of address. At the root of the issue, it is a desperation. And I see this in my, you know, in independent media, where I see people, my contemporaries even, looking at people, selling them bullshit, getting clicks, getting subscriptions, getting patrons and donations, knowing that it's bullshit. They know it. I watched Sam Cedar look at the front of the fucking camera in a serious face and say, well, we're getting into 2016 territory. And if you say that election was rigged, you sound like Alex Jones. And I'm like, bro, didn't Donna Brazile and Tom Perez, who's the current DNC chair, and Elizabeth Warren, and in all the WikiLeaks, but those three specifically, who are clearly establishment, all admitted it was rigged.
Yeah.
So like, so we have contemporaries that are taking advantage of it just as much as the quote unquote establishment.
Well, let me make a link, because what you're saying is very important. We were talking about World War I, and we were talking about making an analogous link. The corporate Democrats got caught rigging their primary. And what do? They do this brilliant PR projection spin and then make it the Russians rigged the general election, almost like Edward Bernays, who got us into World War I. It was just from a strategic standpoint, I got to say, it was a brilliant PR move.
Mm-hmm. Didn't work this time, though.
No,
did not work this time.
No, actually, it was. No, let me take that back. It was devious, and they were discovered. It failed. So maybe Edward Bernays was better. He was more skilled as a PR artist.
And it was, less opportunity to get exposed. It wasn't a WikiLeaks back then, right? So, but hell, we can look at World War II. What would this world look like if Henry Wallace won VP instead of Truman? And he did win, right? That's what I always tell people when people say, because I'm a Tulsi supporter. I do support Bernie, but I'm like, I need foreign policy to be squared away, because people have no idea that that's the reason. Like FDR could never really fully fulfill his goals, because out of nowhere, World War II came up and occupied 3 terms. So that became the focus.
Yeah.
But even now, I tell people all the time, like, y'all keep thinking like, oh, more numbers and we can overcome this. More numbers, we can win. More numbers. I'm like, bro, I was at the convention. We had the numbers. We won 2 counts. Didn't matter. They took it from them anyway. Yeah. So unless you want to address but we should have never even got to that point, because he probably won. We're finding out, years later, still, man, there were ballots hanging in a closet, ballots being destroyed, incinerated, ballots in the dumpster. Like we found out Tim Canova had hundreds of thousands of ballots. I live in Florida, and he was running against W. Watchman Schultz, had hundreds of thousands of ballots destroyed. It won't only Tim Canova's name on the ballots. People keep forgetting that. Yeah. Everybody who voted for Bernie or for Tim most likely voted for who?
Bernie.
Hundreds. This is the largest district in Florida.
Yeah. No, he got ripped off. He got ripped off totally.
So we don't even know just how bad the rigging was, and yet it still seems to be an ugly topic amongst the hardcore Bernie people. Like, they don't want to talk about it. And the reason why, in my humble opinion, is because they know that if they talk if they demand that Bernie address it, their fear is that he will not do so. Which, if that's the case, you have a different problem on your hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be president at that point, in my opinion, if you're not willing to be moved left when you are being pushed left by your own supporters. One thing that I can say about Tulsi, for the faults that she does have, because everybody has faults, there's not been one time that I've seen an outcry of people trying to push her left that she did not, in fact, move left. She did her research. If the research held up, she moved left. She used to be okay with sanctions. She didn't love them necessarily, but she was okay with them until she went to Syria. Now she's like, nope, don't support sanctions at all. I've seen what it does to people. This does not hurt the government. It does not hurt the elites. It only hurts the people. And she is firmly against sanctions now.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why she wants to re-enter the Iran deal, because she knows the rest of the legislature won't do it unless Iran re-enters the deal. But she also is like, but we're not going to set it up like last time, because y'all were just trying to catch them in a gotcha moment where you can put sanctions on them no matter what. And Tulsi's pretty much made it clear that if sanctions come across her desk, she's not signing it. So you got to come up. Now you got to be diplomatic. Oh my God, can you believe that?
Well, the neocons, the military-industrial complex needs an enemy. It needs it has to make weaponry, because that's how it earns its trillions and trillions of dollars. And so who's the next, on the project for a new American century, who is on the target list? Iran. That's, so they've got to keep that, they got to keep the cash flow going. It's about the money.
Yeah. And I would say that would be the dumb. Just trying to attack Iran is the stupidest. People have no fucking idea how big Iran is.
Yeah.
And 2, Saudi Arabia also knows better, right? Saudi Arabia is feeling froggy, and they have been feeling froggy for quite some time. Israel's feeling froggy, and of course, they've been feeling froggy for quite some time too. Why do you think none of these motherfuckers have leaped? Because Iran is bigger than Saudi Arabia and Israel combined. You can throw fucking Iraq in there, and it's still with Iran, and their population is triple the size, and they've been preparing for war for the last 5 decades.
Yeah.
You fuck with them if you want to.
Yeah,
They're literally waiting for you to come to their doorstep, and they should be. And so when you're the U.S. at this point, say if you want to think about it from a selfish perspective, do I really want to go to war with these motherfuckers? We couldn't beat we couldn't get Afghanistan organized, and they don't even have a standing army.
Yeah.
They're not even united in any meaningful way.
Yeah, the Taliban control like what, 70% of the country or more, maybe even more than that.
Like what was crazy is the only profound thing that Joe Biden has ever said. He said the other night, he's like, bro, we cannot bring Afghanistan together. It's not our place and we can't do it. It's impossible. I was like, oh my God, he actually said it. Like, because that's how I feel. Tulsi understands this as well. And also, it's not our fucking place. If the people want to unite, it's their job to do it, not ours.
They don't call it the graveyard of empires for nothing. I mean, just prior to Russia, the Soviet Union go crashing. They were, buried into that Afghanistan quagmire. And that's why I'm thinking we might be headed for some bad times, because we repeated the same modus operandi as the Soviet Union. I think we're headed for some bad economic times, just like, the Soviets were, for getting involved in that quagmire.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, honestly, it's by design.
Yeah.
Once again, desperate people are much easier to control. You're quicker to sign up for the military. Isn't it a coincidence that the economy is tanking while military operations are ramping up? And they're like, we got a home for you. You need some security and stability? We got a home for you. Same thing happened in 2008, right? We started escalating, I would say, even further in Iraq. We kind of were pulling out of Afghanistan, or we were slowing down a little bit in Afghanistan, but in Iraq, we were ramping up. Syria, that's when we started ramping up in Syria. And we started, a lot of people don't know the Navy started giving out way more bonuses because, and if you know how the area works, we're South China Sea, we're always there, we're always ready to go to war. And it's, like I said, it's every time that we're on an economic decline, or if we're on like an economic, kind of like almost when we're about to hit that peak of prosperity where the middle class is extremely strong, there's a huge war that pops off out of nowhere. Yeah. It happened in World War I, right? It happened in World War II. Yeah. Like it was with 2001 crash, or excuse me, with Afghanistan and 9/11 and the Iraq conflict. Same thing happened. People forget our economy before Bush got in was like, internet was booming, tech industry starts kind of filling out, like it was the beginning of the social media age with MySpace and all these other tag and all that good stuff. Next thing you know, like Bush seems like he was purposely tanking the economy at one point, so, or at least the banks were. And at that point, the president doesn't have much control over the banks now, does he? If you think that's not by design.
Yeah, I would say, I think if anything, JFK taught us that pretty much the military industrial complex and the bank cartels vis-a-vis the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of London, pretty much, because that's one bank. I mean, really.
It's one bank, yep.
Yeah, run the game. And, the president is like, he's there for the theatrics. This is, doesn't matter if you put in Trump. I mean, even though I want to see Bernie in, if you go against that system, they are going to get rid of you so quick.
At least out loud.
Yeah.
We're in a different world, though, I would say. And here's why. Like, we have this leverage that can't be accounted for, because the way our leverage works is obviously like social media. We can connect faster than ever before. There are kind of like these counter revolution, like there's like the tech industry, and then there's a revolutionary tech industry, like the tech industry of revolutionaries, with things like Signal and Discord and things like that. So but the way it works is, okay, if you try too hard to silence dissent, you end up hurting your bottom line.
Well, let me throw something. Yeah, all right. Well, let me throw this out. Yeah, they know that. Okay, so there's dissent, and that's why they had two choices. They could either done an FDR Green New Deal, gave everybody jobs, stimulated the economy, or they could have invested in the surveillance state. So I think their line of thinking is let's make gulags. I mean, you think this Gitmo is for the Muslims? They're building this stuff in case the shit goes down. The wall, the spying on every electronic device, militarizing the police force. These cats are saying, well, which do we want to go? We want to go FDR, or we want to just let's make this shit so tight, no matter how bad we, Running Man, dystopia, we make this shit, we're gonna be able to clamp down on these people.
They think that.
That's what. But I agree with you. They think that. That's their thinking.
Yeah, they definitely think that. But our country's kind of ran by morons, and it just hasn't been exposed until recently just how stupid these motherfuckers are. Like, they're using the same playbook from 1940, bro. Like, dog. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you brought in Bolton and what's that man's name? Elliot Abrams and Mike Pompeo and Mad Dog Mass, we're like, really? Do you really not think we're not gonna know how to react to this?
And the cherry on the cake was John Bolton.
Yeah, come on, like, Bolton. And then next thing you know, hey guys, this tanker got attacked and Iran did it. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Sloppy. Nobody fucking believes you.
They are their fucking false flags are getting kind of sloppy. You're right about that. You're right about
Nobody believe. Man, I remember. So when Obama was in, we used to bomb Syria pretty fucking often, and nobody flinched, unfortunately. And that's including myself, by the way, people, because the situation was so fucking convoluted, at least as far as like from an American standpoint. It was kind of, we were told sometimes we were there to fight ISIS, but out of nowhere, Assad started bombing his own people, quote unquote. And we're like, huh? But why is he trying to bomb his own people? And also, so who is ISIS trying to hurt? We're trying to understand, like, what the fuck is going on? It wasn't, and that was on purpose. It was convoluted on purpose so that we don't ask questions, that we don't pick a side, that we can't call out the government. Because the fucked up part is, the connection you eventually have to make is, oh shit, we're funding the terrorism and we want their country to be fucked up. Like, and nobody, it's like a different level of conscience when you finally realize, oh my God, they're fucking up these countries on purpose. Like, and now you can start to see the picture way more clearly. And so I think it was the last time that Trump sent those rocket launchers, the Sidewinders, at Syria, I've never seen so many people all at once scream out loud, you are fucking full of shit. This is it. No more. We're not playing this game with you. Or not only like from the left, it was from the left. It was from the right. People like Mike Cernovich were calling him out. People like Tucker Carlson were calling him out. I mean, everybody. They were like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? We haven't even done an investigation yet. And then, of course, we found out what the attacks weren't committed by Assad, if at all. The whole thing was staged.
Seymour
OPCW leaks confirmed that.
Seymour Hersh, the Pulitzer Prize winning ex-New York Times reporter. This is not like some far, tinfoil hat conspiracy site that showed that was a false flag. This was Seymour Hersh, the guy who won a Pulitzer Prize for uncovering the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. This was some serious journalism.
Exposed that Libya, that Hillary and the Obama administration were taking weapons from Libya into Syria, and they weren't giving them to Assad. So who are they giving them to?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's obvious. It's
thanks to Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's even crazier that Tulsi can stand on a fucking stage and say, hey, Saudi Arabia funded the people who attacked us on 9/11. And everybody's like, oh, okay, that's cool, man. Bro, we started a whole fucking war over that. And y'all like, oh, okay, that's cool. Whatever.
That is all right, you're really touching on some heavy stuff, because that is treason to the highest level. The people, I would say one of the entities, and we got to be, I don't know how far you want to get into 9/11, because that's like,
that's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, the powers that be view that like we're talking about Sandy Hook. That is like some heavy shit.
Even though, I'm planning on doing a show about this a little bit later. Hopefully, if I can get to it tomorrow. I waited a little bit because I just like 9/11. People just need time to grieve. And we can get into the accountability aspect of it, but I don't like taking away people's time to grieve about the reality that somebody that they loved is not with them anymore. But with that being said, we are getting a little later in the month, and there's a whole fucking investigation open, not by some random people in Europe, not by some random conspiracy theorists. It was started by fucking scientists in Alaska. Their findings were so damn conclusive that a municipality in New York is reopening the investigation into Building 7. Because they're like, bro, there's no fucking way it's a controlled demolition. And if that's the case, now we have a whole different, people are like, oh, it's a controlled demolition. That's a fucking crazy fact already, right? Yeah, you just murdered millions or hundreds of Americans. But now you got to be like, hold on, what do you mean it's a controlled demolition? And how the fuck did you know to let it off at that exact time? Why was this being prepared in advance? How far in advance did you know that this attack was going to happen? That's a whole different can of worms that, in my opinion, needs to be opened up, because it once again shows that Operation Norwood, although it was officially denied by JFK, there's a good chance that JFK knew that, yeah, I officially denied it, but if the CIA presented it to me, it's because it already got set in motion. It was because they were trying to get my approval, because if you get my approval, you can implicate him.
Right, the government already had the blueprints for a false flag with jetliners back in 61 or whatever that came out.
And then have you ever listened to Cody Snodgrass interview?
I'm not familiar.
Oh man, that shit. Oh Jesus, that you gotta listen to that, man. Look up Cody Snodgrass, Snodres. Bruh. That shit, this man was involved with the CIA, who the CIA asset that was actually originally picked to do the OKC bombing. He was breaking down how the Clintons put in a bunch of they fired anybody who was not loyal to their regime, basically, put in federal judges, U.S. attorneys that would never challenge them. He denied that. He didn't want to do it. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm not doing that shit. And the reason that they were going to have him do it was, one, because he was on the way out and they wanted the last thing to implicate him. That's what the CIA always does to its assets. Two, all of the documents, not only talking about the vaccines and why we were being forced to take so many because of us using chemical weapons and depleted uranium in Iraq, but also because we were getting anthrax because we gave them the fucking anthrax in Iraq to use against Iran.
Yeah. And
that was in that building. Also, that shit fucked up a bunch of soldiers. It was a multi-billion, it could have almost been to the trillions dollar lawsuit. All that shit was in the OKC building. It was moved. All that documentation was moved there within a week. This is all documented that this shit was moved there within a week. Also, he was involved in another court case that was exposing the fact that, coincidentally enough, around the 94 crime bill, the DEA and the ATF were moving like Gestapo operations and targeting black people and Latinos for obvious fucking reasons. The Clintons were invested in the private prison industry. We already know how that game went. So like this man, and he talks about Libya, because he was his friend that he was in jail with that disobeyed a lawful order to not engage. He was told to not engage and he was told not to go save those soldiers that were being attacked. He was told not to, and he got arrested for that. He talked about Waco because he was in jail with another person that was involved in Waco. Like, and that they were basically running an operation. It was military operation where they like surround you and then destroy the high ground. And like, he was breaking it all down here. Like, it was a military operation. So like, and he made the very clear connection that fucked me up. He was like, if you've noticed, he's like, can you count on how many, like, automatic weapons didn't just get invented in 1990. Why is it that from the time that Bill Clinton got in office to 2019, we saw this ridiculous increase in bombings and false, quote unquote, false flag events, mass shootings? He's like, this never happened before. If it did, it was a rare thing. And all of a sudden, Bill Clinton gets in office and they skyrocket. At the same time, all these other auxiliary things were happening. And then he said he couldn't speak out because he said for him, the best thing ever happened to him was Donald Trump. And not because he likes Donald Trump, but he said because Donald Trump got all of Hillary Clinton's people out for the most part, including the U.S. attorneys and the federal judges. So that was the first time he ever felt it was safe to go public. Otherwise, he would have been put back in jail. So like, this is how deep this shit gets. And we sit here and lob at like conspiratorial accusations at, Maduro, for example. Oh, he makes people disappear. Bro, this motherfucker, Juan Guaido, tried to establish a coup in the middle of the day on his cell phone, live streaming from fucking YouTube, bro. And he is not in jail. He is not dead. His family is not in jail. His family is not dead. He still fucking lives in Venezuela. I'm pretty sure his house is still beautiful. He still participates in Congress. Like, how are we still going to, and this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know Maduro personally, but I do know that he is the worst fucking tyrant ever if his literal opposition is still walking free. Right. Yeah. So how can we call that type of shit, you know, like we can affirm that type of shit, but we can't call out the facts that we have available about these criminals who have been running our nation.
And also, you know, people like to point out that Venezuela is a failed state. If you vote for Bernie, we're going to be in Venezuela. This is U.S. And what they never mention is the sanctions. They destroyed, the U.S. destroyed their economy with the sanctions. I mean, this country produces oil. You don't let them sell their oil, they're going to tank.
Oh, yeah. That's the case for Brazil and Venezuela. Brazil and Venezuela had the ethnic makeup, the regional makeup, the agricultural makeup to be the United States' largest competitors. They would, and guess what? Because their weather is way better than ours overall, they were probably going to be successful. And that's how the economy works. So we invented these things, right? We call them fair trade agreements. We remember the free trade agreement. Bro, first of all, I'm gonna let y'all know something. The moment you have to have a regulation on trade, it is no longer free. It's the whole point of it. And instead of behaving as empires in the past had done by making all of your country's problems our problems, we're not going to call you like Mexico, like of America. Like, you're not going to be a state in this country. We're going to call you like Brazil of America. Like, no, that's how all great empires fall, because their problems become the problems of what we would consider the federal government. We just put you in such disastrous trade deals where we control your economy. We control what you can and cannot grow. We control who you can and cannot trade with. We can, you know, to a degree, we even control how large your army can be and how successful they can be. And, you know, we even will influence in one form or another the outcome of your elections.
And just think
that's the new way of empire. That's how the new way of empire is ran.
But it's even worse, because it's, maybe you could go back to after World War II, during the middle class miracle from maybe like 45 to 65. At least American workers were getting the jobs. But with these trade deals with like NAFTA, they shipped all the manufacturing jobs out, and they turned our economy into a financialization economy, where a good chunk of our money, GDP, comes from just moving money around. It's a parasitic and a false economy.
It is absolutely a false economy. And what's funny is activism back then was more prominent. Surprisingly enough, people think like these fucking women's marches and shit like that. That's not activism. It's like a club for some of these people. Nothing changes. There's no demands on the table. Activism in between. I mean, nobody wanted another World War II. And Vietnam War was happening at the same time. You had the Black Panthers thriving, influencing all communities. To like, you want to see what communism could look like? Look at what the Black Panthers were able to do.
They got bumped off totally. Those dudes were like assassinated.
Bro, they were teaching you how to hunt, teach you how to grow food, teach you how to grow businesses. They were cultivating. I mean, people think that they think of Black Panthers like, oh, they're only Black people. No, a lot of people in the Black Panthers. Just Panthers are Black, so you know, Black Panthers. But in all seriousness, like, they firm believers in the Second Amendment. They had they were effective when it came to lobbying. Like, they had it. And that was why they were bumped off and declared a terrorist organization.
Absolutely. I mean, they did not like seeing Black people with guns. It flipped them the fuck out. And also, I mean, there's a lot of, we could get into the whole economics. You talk about economics of like slavery and all that divide and conquer shit. But the Panthers, they really represented a threat because they couldn't be bought. You know, it wasn't like Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Joy Reid. These cats were like
Barack Obama, identity issues. Kamala Harris, identity issues. Joyanne Reid, African descent. She has no connection to the African American community here. There's a reason they picked the people they picked to try and represent the Black community at that level.
You're saying they want a presentation.
Exactly. They want somebody who can look the part, but somebody who doesn't have that emotional connection to the African American community, because our experiences here are so unique that, like, it's almost like you had to be raised here, and experienced it firsthand to understand exactly. Man, this damn. I don't know if you saw that interview that Nina Turner had with Cenk and TYT, where she was just talking about Joe Biden's answers on his,
No, I didn't see that interview.
Oh man, it's enough to bring tears to your eyes, man, because she was touching on everything, like, just from being chattel slavery to Jim Crow to redlining, which didn't even end until recently, and now because of redlining, gentrification of our homes, our businesses being bought out and closed because we never had an equal chance at wealth. Never. Right now, if everything stays on pace, it would take 228 years for Black people to catch up to white people. That's if everything stayed as it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's not just about the wealth, because we know what wealth buys in this particular country. It buys your freedom, quite literally. It buys, security. It buys mental health. It buys literal health. It buys. Huh?
I was going to say slavery is the ultimate form of like neoliberalism. I mean, it's the total commoditization of a human being. This is where we're kind of going now. Everybody is being commoditized, whether you're going a prison inmate, a military soldier, everything. It's a different, more complex level of slavery, but it still operates on a lot of the same principles.
It definitely does. Absolutely. Because people forget, like, even when it came to slavery, like, there were poor white people who were enslaved. It was, once again, just a different type of slavery. Yeah, they didn't get necessarily whipped, but the elite still ran the show, And it's kind of like how it was basically like you were almost like middle management, if you will, during those times. Did you actually have any real chance to prosper as compared to the elites? Nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it was designed that way. It was basically an unofficial caste system where, like, you just better be happy you're not Black like them, and people just accepted it. But even right now, my people, if you will, they confuse being rich with being wealthy, because being rich, you're still a commodity. Like, you still, you can be controlled by the one writing the checks.
Absolutely.
And being wealthy means that you are in the position to do the controlling. Like Oprah, they kept Oprah rich just long enough that they can implicate her until they finally was like, okay, now we got enough on you, you can be wealthy now. But she's not gonna do anything with that money now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's with when rappers get too bold, they shut them down. When athletes get too, that's one thing that is unique about LeBron. LeBron and even Steph Curry are kind of in uncharted territory right now, where they're both almost billionaires. Right. LeBron will be a billionaire before he gets out of the league. Steph Curry is creeping onto that billionaire status because of his wife's success. And they're very vocal when it comes to social justice issues and putting their money where their mouth is. LeBron's going to be a target eventually. I mean, starting that school and offering, like, he's going to be a target. But like, there are all these anomalies that we're seeing. They haven't been accounted for because nobody ever thought it could happen. Nobody ever thought that an athlete can get a contract for 5 years for $200 million. That is insanity. And then turn around and sign a $200 million shoe deal, over 5 years. And then instead of saying, it's mine, I want more, they're like, yo, hey man, you want to go to business school? Hey man, you want to become an agent? Hey man, you want to own a team? And they start putting people in positions to the point where, LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, is very adamant about player autonomy and the player being in control of their destiny, not only while they're playing, but after. And because of that, it's talked about a lot, as a Black man, doing the same thing that like Kobe's agent was known for doing, which is playing in the league, putting them against each other, and using Kobe's influence and some of his other clients' influence to control the outcome of other teams. LeBron's agent does the same thing, and he's attacked for it. And they try and belittle him and attack LeBron for it. And the truth of the matter is, what he's doing isn't out of tradition. It's just that he's a Black man who is way younger, doing it at a much higher level. And that is the biggest issue. It's like with Colin Kaepernick. You think they gave a fuck about that damn flag when he took that knee? No, it was the fact that this man had it all. All he had to do was shut up, take the money. and you will be on a team. You will be fine. We don't even, matter of fact, Marshawn Lynch sat for every single national anthem since the players was forced to start coming out. Never, no one gave a single fuck. But the problem was when they asked Colin Kaepernick finally, because he had kneeled a few times and he had sat down a few times. They're like, why are you sitting down? And he explained to them why. He wasn't even looking for attention. He was just chilling. He was sitting on the bench, minding his own business. And they asked him. And then when he said it, they started attacking him. Because now when the cat's out the bag, oh shit, now we have to address this.
Do you think the Nike contract was a way to neutralize Kaepernick in the sense that, I mean, let's make him corporate, you know?
No, I think that was Nike capitalizing on the social justice warrior movement now.
Got it.
I think that the settlement may have been a way for them to try, and I think it ultimately screwed them. But they were trying to silence Kaepernick by thinking, oh, if we give him some money, then it'll screw him over, or like it'll hurt his image, which was not the case. It just further fortified his point that they were collaborating to keep him out of the league. And then once again, why? Why were you collaborating to keep him out of the league? And it isn't just about for them, it isn't just about what he was kneeling for, but oh shit, we don't want other players to get the idea, be that autonomous. We don't want them to unite, because there were a lot of players who united around Colin Kaepernick, and a lot of those players no longer play in the NFL. But it didn't stop them from doing it anyway, like knowing what it was going to cost. And they know that type of activism eventually translates into the boardroom and those collective bargaining agreements where the players begin to truly realize their power. And once that happens, they know that all of a sudden that revenue share starts getting divvied up a little bit more. And then you have a LeBron situation. The NBA is dealing with it perfectly fine. They're like, they know LeBron is a couple of seasons away and a couple of meetings away from owning a fucking team. Legitimately owning a team. And that, to be petty, he might actually buy a team. They're thinking about buying a team in the NFL just to piss the NFL off.
Do you see that bleeding into the African-American community as a whole? So maybe they're at the vanguard and this is going to kind of extend out, or how do you see it going into the general population?
I would say that LeBron's even influenced me. And I'm a huge critique of his play, by the way. But I started my own media network, the MCSC network, where we brought, I have Pasta and Fiorella for the Combo Couch there in LA. I have Sophia. Her nickname is the Socialist Libertarian. She's in New York. She's younger, about 18. I have another writer named Robbie Yeager. He's a writer and researcher. And instead of doing it, the same way that everybody else is doing and kind of keeping everything on a surface level, we did like what I said we do. We always link everything together. We cultivate the progressive movement. We don't just try to help ourselves grow. That was the main thing. Like, I don't even get like a share of their profits or anything like that. I actually help them. I bring them on, give them exposure, help them make connections with other candidates and other influencers. But the number one rule is you got to be involved. You got to be an organizer. You got to be an activist. You have to be on the ground. And that has led to a lot of success for us. It led to a lot of backlash as well, still does, because we're not bullshitters. But that's kind of like how every story starts out. When you're true to yourself and you maintain your integrity, you get a lot of backlash, because those who are full of shit, they're where they're going to get exposed. Because when you don't give a fuck, when they can't offer you subscribers to keep you quiet, they can't offer you money, which has been offered to me. Venture capitalists have approached me. They can't offer you, influence and all that good shit, and you still manage to be as influential as we have been. All of a sudden, they're like, shit, they're coming for me next. Because that's we expose people, and they expose people too, but it's only the other team gets exposed. They think of everything as binary, and we're like, no, if you're an ally or you're not an ally, we can disagree about how to get there. That's two different things. Right. Allies are allies, adversaries are adversaries, and if you are against progress, then you are an adversary.
Yeah. That's and speaking of you were talking about changing the system. Do you've been involved in these political campaigns. Do you think change is still possible through that medium, or how do you see
Through
that?
political campaigning? Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you have to use a multi-pronged approach. I don't like when people say like, oh, we have to like completely leave the Democrat. Like, I don't like the blue no matter who shit. I also don't like the Republicans trying to pretend like the Democratic Party is worse, because they're both pretty shitty. I don't like the Green Party that says, oh, well, the Democratic Party is trash. Everybody should go to the Green Party. And you're like, bro, but y'all have had all this power. Y'all had your best fundraising year under Jill Stein. How many ranked choice voting ballots or ballot initiatives have been put up? You know what I'm saying? How many ballot initiatives did you put up to make sure that your federal candidates get up on the debate stage? How many election integrity ballot initiatives have you introduced? Like, everybody wants to solve things through party politics because that's how we've been conditioned to deal with all of our problems in the States. Get on the team and fight your hardest and everything will just work out. No, it requires a multi-pronged approach. It requires more than one solution. It requires us people who have, so Bernie and Tulsi, for example, they have a platform because of the Democratic Party, or some would say in spite of the Democratic Party, and they're using it to call attention to those issues. And because they're going to ultimately get fucked over, which we all kind of know is coming, that will galvanize people. So then we have to redirect that energy. Now, if we redirect that energy into exclusively endorsing the Green Party, and that's where we think it's going to stop, we're already lost. We need to say, okay, and this is something that I learned while studying how to start a successful business and how to get out ahead. When you're talking about, you can't plan for 2019 at the end of 2018. At the end of 2018, you're supposed to be looking at 2020 already. And that's how it has to be with politics. Why we shouldn't be getting upset about, maybe whoever the Green Party candidate is not getting on the debate stage. We've not heard one single fucking murmur anywhere about any of the Green Party candidates attempting to get on the debate stage. You get what I'm saying? So now everything looks like political retaliation. We knew when we started the DNC fraud lawsuit with myself, Jared Beck and Elizabeth Lee Beck, we knew that it didn't matter if Bernie won or lost in 2016 when we started our lawsuit, because we knew that if he could get screwed, it could happen to someone else. And so it wasn't about the outcome, it was about what was happening. And we also knew that, given what we learned in 2016, that it was highly likely that the same type of behavior is going to occur in 2019 and 2020. And so we needed a lawsuit in place so that, because it's going to be a long lawsuit, that we can constantly and continuously add to this. And so we're not reacting 5 years later, hoping that, or assuming that Bernie's going to lose and then reacting after that. So the argument that's usually used to dismiss political cases can't be used with us because it usually looks like political retaliation, jealousy, and all that good stuff. They can't use that with us. We started our lawsuit in March, well, officially in June of 2016, or a little bit before that, end of May. The election was over in July. So they can't use that excuse, because you have to plan ahead, and you got to kind of get in the mud, dig through policy, dig through these laws, find those names that have been relatively innocuous. For example, in Florida, we were able to hold Brenda Snipes accountable for what she did to Tim Canova, because Tim would say her name over and over and over again. And when shit gets political, somebody got to go. That's what we know for a fact. Same thing happened in New York. I was at the Board of Elections meeting. That's one of my viral videos that I didn't post. It just somebody recorded me cussing them out. The woman who I got in the altercation with at the Board of Elections, she's done. And not only was she done, her business got fucked over because we made her famous. Everybody wants to pay attention to these federal elections, and that's all well and good. That's the sexy politics shit. But that's not where the change happens. You think that Maine was worried about federal elections when they passed ranked choice voting?
Yeah.
No, they wanted control of their own democracy. And that is a definition of grassroots. The top down shit, it simply does not work.
It starts with a dog catcher.
Yeah.
Right.
Seriously.
Start at the very, right at the base. Yeah.
Right at the base. It starts at your mailbox. It starts with your, these politicians are literally running on what they think we want.
Yeah.
So why not show them what you want by introducing ballot, and they go, trust me, they do their research. When they go from state to state, they figure out what is most important to those people in that state. So that's why you have to start at your state, in your local municipality, like wherever, but you got to start there. You got to, that is where all politics are local. I remember I used to make this joke when Trump got elected. People were like, well, you're not freaking out. I said, bro, if Hillary won, Alabama all of a sudden wasn't going to become New York City. When Trump wins, New York, did they start passing a bunch of like pro-Trump laws? No, because it's New York. New York got its own whole fucking ecosystem of politics that they.
Oh man, this is like, New York is intense. This is like a
I know.
criminal, you know, with the Cuomo gang. This New York is like a organized crime syndicate. I mean, you know,
it absolutely is. And but once again, so that's why you got to take care of New York locally. You can't, ain't no president gonna be able to take care of New York. But it's the same thing in California. California didn't all of a sudden become fucking like Arkansas because Trump got elected. But we know, but we also know that if Hillary would have won, California and New York wouldn't be paying attention to shit right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that is the positives of somebody like Trump, who kind of came out of nowhere getting elected, is that now everybody got to pay attention. The people who love Trump want him to be in office, but also remember kind of why he voted. And not everybody's happy with him as he would like. There, a lot of those anti-war Trump supporters are a little pissed right now. They're a little pissed. Cassandra Fairbanks is an acquaintance of mine, for example. She used to be a Bernie supporter, then she was a Trump supporter because she perceived him to be a fighter. He let her down a lot, and she's constantly calling him out. Mike Cernovich, I'm not friends with him, but I pay attention to him, calling him out constantly. And they're all kind of hitting on that Tulsi train because of that. So do you think that if Hillary would have won, that this type of shit, that the kind of weird progress that we're seeing as far as people having their eyes woken up to how the system really works, like we're looking at Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump agree on 98% of the fucking issues, bruh.
Yeah.
For everybody who swear blue no matter who, I'm like, okay, what is Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump not agreed on?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Yeah, it's pretty much she goes with all the surveillance state stuff, all the bank stuff, deregulation, all that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're seeing an era where we're kind of like seeing the system exposed. Like, okay.
You know, that's a good point, because Trump, whatever his negative points, he took that pretty slick Obama mask off the system. I mean, here, you know, Obama was smiling, he was cool.
Big old ugly face on it.
And now you see what it is. You see, you're looking into the mouth of the monster, you know, no mask. And it's a ravenous beast.
We're in an era right now where you have to kind of wonder, like, why wasn't this investigation into 9/11 conducted before? What was stopping it? Why wasn't Jeffrey Epstein, you know, not rest in peace? Because we don't even know where the fuck he's at. First of all, you ain't gonna sell me that bullshit.
Well, let's assume he's dead. The cameras go off at that moment, the most secure jail in Manhattan, in the United States, and the cameras go off at that moment. Are you fucking kidding me?
But how do we, you know, how do we get to the point where this motherfucker has to be arrested and have all these federal investigations like open, and him actually possibly going to trial under Trump?
Did you ever see Whitney Webb's expose of the history of the whole Epstein blackmail?
Not all of it. Somebody, Pasta on my network covered it, but whenever I started it, I was like, oh my God, it's gonna take me. It
goes back to Meyer Lansky, although Meyer Lansky wasn't using kids, because the mafia worked with the government, you know, during World War II to keep the docks cool, everybody keep the equipment flowing, and he started blackmailing politicians, you know, creating those honey traps for you know, people. But this was like also involved Virginia Hill, you may remember from the movie Bugsy. They would use her. And so, but to Lansky's credit, he was old school mafia, so no kids. Then it's the blackmail ring is the next guy to get it, because he worked with in Prohibition with Lansky, was a guy named Louis Rosensteel. Rosensteel gets it, and he's into kids. And then they start going at the Plaza Hotel. They start filming politicians, heavy players with the children. And then from there, it goes to Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, by the way, also was Donald Trump's mentor, if you remember. He introduced him to New York society, plugged him in with the Manhattan scene. Roy Cohn was the guy. And then from there, it goes to Jeffrey Epstein, who also Trump attended Epstein's parties. Now,
Yes.
that is known. And when you see the list of people who wrote on the Lolita Express, the president of Harvard, what's his name, Summers. I mean, you've got Alan Dershowitz, the head of the legal department of Harvard. You have, what's that guy, Pinker, the head of the psychology department, was on the manifest. You have a Bill Clinton. I mean, you name it.
And his name never, like, man, do you understand how and it still fucks with me. I'm like, bro, we just found out that a president was not only on the Lolita Express, he was on the Lolita Express while he was president.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and the media just doesn't react.
Yeah.
The media just doesn't react to this. That is just, at that point, why the fuck does anybody turn on the TV anymore? If that's not news, I don't know what news is anymore.
Yeah.
If we're like, okay, all that shit that Trump does discuss you, if you're Rachel Maddow or whatever, or fucking Joanne Reed, bro, Bill Clinton was having sex with children multiple times. Got to the point where he just said, hey, Secret Service, you don't even got to come, bro. Don't worry about it. Like, and that's not news. How is this not? We should still be talking about the fact that we had because then you got to ask, like, hold on, how many times this happened? What other officials wrote?
I think the sex blackmail ring is used quite prevalently to control politicians, people in power. You know, who was friends with Roy Cohn? It was the chief editor of the New York Times, during this whole thing when he ran it. I think that this is a powerful blackmail.
You know, it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's probably funny to Weinstein. He's probably like, damn, you know what? Maybe my situation ain't that bad.
At least they were of legal age. Yeah.
I know, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of these guys who probably sexually assault women, but I'm not on record for no kids, even though I'm sure he was probably involved in some way too. And he was just much better at covering that particular aspect up. Yeah. But these other guys, like Clinton, the fact that Hillary and Bill were like, bro, Warren, how do you fucking associate yourself at that point with the Clintons, knowing what you know about Epstein? Unless you're okay with it, or to some degree, you're involved with it. Like, you're worried that they have some blackmail over you.
Yeah. Serious stuff.
That's the real question that I want to, like, ask the people who like Warren, because at this point everybody's clearly aware of the Epstein situation. So if you're lying, and Hillary, if I recall, was on that manifesto as well, correct?
That I don't know. I don't have any knowledge on that.
I feel like Hillary was on that manifesto. And so
what would she be doing? Because I don't think that's more for I don't think it was.
Well,
how do they blackmail women? Because if they're using this to blackmail the men, my question is, how do you what does a Kamala Harris have to do on camera? What does an Elizabeth Warren have to do on camera?
Well, for Hillary, I can't speak for everybody else, but for Hillary specifically, there was always rumors that she was a lesbian.
Yeah, but is it okay? You think that's enough to down somebody like?
So to have her, doing whatever with younger women and things like that. Hell, coming from Arkansas, coming from a conservative background, just being lesbian was enough to kill your career back then.
Right. You're saying in the 90s and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta remember, like, when this situation was going down. So, like, back then, just being a lesbian was enough. And if they could have literally used her being a lesbian to get her to go on the plane to begin with.
Makes sense.
Because it kills their whole thing, like the Clintons' whole dynasty. And so, and which also explains why maybe she was so desperate to be president, because she's put herself through all of this risk so much, and she's like, I'm not gonna do this. Like, I put myself through so much to have the goal like just slip out of my, even though it's kind of her fault, but man, if she just seemed a little bit apologetic, she probably could have won. Just a little fucking bit apologetic, just a little bit, but she didn't care. She felt entitled.
She assumed she was inheriting her throne, and there wasn't going to be any opposition to that. And they misjudged the temperament or the weather of the cultural consciousness at the time, and she just, she didn't.
But I will say this: the fact that Hillary Clinton lost, and I have to go in a second, but the fact that Hillary Clinton lost is proof that our democracy isn't perfect, and we have a long way to go, but it does exist in some form, because we do know that Trump won that damn election. That man was
fair. Whatever you say, he won it fair. He did. I mean, the Republican Party did not want him as the president.
They were that dossier shit. That whole situation was started by the Republicans. They were trying to stop him from winning. People keep forgetting that. But for whatever shit we want to talk about the Republicans, they allowed the man they hated to be the winner of the primary, and they got behind him because they're like, look, at the end of the day, bro, he won. He won against all odds. Like, they were smearing him just like they smeared Bernie. They were, Fox News didn't like him. They were trying to lump Bernie and Trump in the same boat.
Yeah.
Because of the type of campaign that Trump was running at the time. So, like, and they still allowed him to win. Yeah, so I'm not saying they don't rig. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying whenever the shit hit the fan, and it's like, bro, okay, if we don't allow him to win, his supporters are going to do what Bernie supporters did to Hillary.
Right. Let's channel this anger. We'll channel the anger. So we'll give them what they perceive as a populist candidate.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I gotta go. I appreciate you having me on.
All your information, I'll post it. Anybody listening will be in the description box, so they could link onto your channel if they dug what you were laying down. And I really appreciate taking time from your schedule to speak to me. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Real was.
No problem at all, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Cool. All right, man. Take it easy.
Thank you.